So we're in our final section of the workshop today, which is managing the job search. I'm going to launch our final poll, and what I'm going to be asking is, have you thought about how many cycles, academic cycles, aka years, you are willing to stay on the academic job market? So in the meantime, you're going to be working as a graduate student, a postdoc, a lecturer, or adjunct faculty. How long are you willing to be on the academic job market to secure a tenure track faculty position? And then also, have you explored career options outside of academia? So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. I'm launching poll number 3. So the majority of you said you're willing to be on the academic cycle for 2 years. That's great that you've started thinking about. Think about, are you going to stay in grad school or in your postdoc while you are on the academic cycle, or are you going to have to graduate? And where are you going to go next? Are you going to get a postdoc? Are you going to work as a lecturer or cobble together multiple adjuncting positions at local universities? Some of you have or are only interested in staying on it for 1 year, so that's great to know. This is going to be really important to talk about at the end, to talk about what happens, how can you do a parallel academic and industry, government, or nonprofit job search. So if you're not going to get, if you are not successful on the academic job search within 1 cycle, how are you going to start working on your other options so that you can still graduate in a reasonable time? And then for people who are doing 3 or more cycles, I think that's great. It's important to recognize really what you're looking for from the job market, and sort of what are your limitations and what do you value, and money, location, family support all factor into those. And you're going to have to keep those in mind when you're deciding. And one thing I've heard before is that it's very easy for people to get sucked into the cycle over and over again because they feel like, if I just tweak my documents a little bit more, maybe this year it'll work out. And I really encourage setting a plan ahead of time so that after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it's done. Like I've shoot my shot, and I need to kind of look at other options. And then for those of you then looking at exploring careers outside of academia, oh wow, I'm pleasantly surprised. Nearly 60% of you say you already have. And that's great. 30% of you say not yet, but I will, and 10% say no, I don't plan to. So think about, even if you're planning to stay on the academic job market for 4 cycles, think about what happens after 4 cycles. Are you going to continue to adjunct or visiting assistant professor, or are you going to then transition to other careers in industry, government, and nonprofits? So these are all intentions that you need to, that you should set ahead of time as you enter the job search. So on setting intentions, Chris Rios, who is Associate Dean at Baylor University, had this to say: I had a wife, I had a child. I had people telling me, you have to finish this degree. So that's what I did. What that meant was I was unwilling to do what many of my friends did and did successfully. I was unwilling to endure the multi-year job search. I ended up with 2 job offers, neither of them as faculty in colleges. And what he is now is he got a postdoctoral dean position in the graduate division, where he also does some lecturing, but he's not a tenure track professor, and he works more on the administrative side of academia. So knowing what does your job search look like and what's going to come at the end of it. If it's not successful, what intentions do you have? So managing the job search means managing these expectations and setting plans for what's going to happen. So I want to frame this as what you cannot control and what you can control, because right now it feels like there's a lot of things we cannot control. So for job applications, every year there's always concerns about the pool of applicants and the competition for a position. That is completely out of your control. What you can do is research the institution like we discussed, and to prepare your application packet. Target the types of institutions you want to work at and tailor all of your documents to that institution. Also, you can build your network and collect advice through informational interviews with faculty. With the economic impact of COVID on the job market, you cannot control the fact that universities have hiring freezes and how long they last. That is out of all of our controls. What you can do is you can set intentions. where am I going to apply and how many cycles? And you can develop parallel career plans. We call them parallel. We don't call them Plan B because every career plan is valid and valuable. And you can research these other career options. And then wellness. The academic job search can be incredibly stressful. So you can't control how long the pandemic will last and how long hiring freezes will last. And you can't control what needs you need to support among your family and friends, but you can control your daily routine and structure and how you utilize resources. So mental health resources, resources like Texas Career Engagement and the Faculty Innovation Center, friends, other confidants. Think about what you can do to make it through this process. So I do want to address the economic reality of the job market. Not to scare people, but so everyone can really go in with their eyes wide open. So if you look here on the left, this is a graph of state spending. So for public universities and associates colleges, what is the state spending on higher education? In 2008, they were spending around $95 billion, all of the states in the US combined. After the financial crisis, that just kept going down and down and down for 5 years. They didn't start to recover the spending that they did on state institutions until 5 years after the financial crisis. I can't say that that's what's going to happen with COVID, but there's a possibility that the market and university budgets are going to be impacted beyond this next academic cycle. It is out of our control. On the other hand, how you see how spending is going to affect the job market. This is from the American Historian Association comparing historian faculty job postings on their website in blue to the number of PhDs in history. And for a long time, they were somewhat together. A vast majority of PhDs in history could find a faculty job, and there was a one-to-one correlation with those on the job boards. But in 2008, like 2007, 2008, there was a sharp decline in posted jobs. And it bounced back a little bit in 2012, but you see it actually hasn't recovered. And we're going to talk about that, how universities have shifted from full-time tenure track positions to a more feasible type of lecturer for the university, which is the adjunct professor. So looking at what the academic job market looks like, I combed through the data and I looked from 1980 to 2018, the US has produced 1.6 million new PhDs. However, in that same time frame, we have only gained 230,000 more full-time instructional faculty positions. So that's about like a 7% or 1 in 7 chance of getting a faculty position for a new PhD. And then as this graph shows on the right, of the academic labor force, only less than 1/3 is a full-time tenured professor or a full-time tenure track professor. So tenure and tenure track are in blue and purple. Full-time non-tenure track, which we'll discuss, blue and orange. Full-time non-tenure track, which we'll discuss, is in purple. And then you see there's a rise in the part-time faculty, and that's going to be the adjunct professor. So when you're looking at non-tenure track options, it's important to know what are your options right now while you're on the job market, and what are your options if the tenure track faculty market doesn't work out and you want to stay as a professor. There is the visiting assistant professor, so you're probably familiar with that from UT or your undergrad, where faculty come in to replace faculty who are on leave or sabbatical, or maybe to add a new specialization. They will be there full time and have the same course load as a professor, but it is a 1 to 3 year contract. It is not indefinite like a tenured professor. Then there are adjunct assistant professors, and these are non-permanent faculty that are hired on a semester basis to teach particular courses. Oftentimes, universities will hire someone for only 1 or 2 courses for that semester. And so people who do this option full-time, they need to bring together multiple adjunct positions at multiple universities in a geographical location. So that's a lot of travel back and forth between universities to teach all these courses. And I was able to get some salary data from the AAUP on what the salary is in Texas. The average salary in Texas from reporting universities is adjunct professors make $3,170 per semester for a single course. So you think if you adjunct 3 courses, you're making $9,000 that semester. So then there's the research assistant professor, and these are for people in STEM. So these are full-time research positions with little to no teaching responsibilities. Sometimes they're referred to as super postdocs. And these are more transitional roles for postdocs who are transitioning to faculty roles, and they are funded by soft money, so external grants and contracts. And then there are lecturers and instructors, and these can be both full or part-time, contract or permanent, and they cover teaching with no research obligations. And often they'll work in the area of like language, where people will hire instructors to teach more courses of a foreign language. And the average salary in Texas for a lecturer or instructor is $60,000. So if those don't sound appealing, or you want to think about what's outside of academia, I highly recommend you develop parallel career options, is what they're calling them. There's no plan B or alternative career options. These are all equally viable options. So you can think about, if you like research, if you like teaching, or if you like communication, there are careers out there for you. So these are real careers that people, that PhDs have. So associate director at a humanities research institute, principal researcher at the American Institutes for Research, a senior thermal engineer at Intel, a product evaluation scientist at Thermo Fisher. These are all research jobs outside of academia. If you like teaching, you can look at careers in higher ed administration, K-12 education, and training. Those are just a few of the options. And these roles can include being an education manager at a university's Office of Educational Improvement and Innovation, being a director of instructional design for a public school system, being an associate director of scientific training and education at a nonprofit, being, I love this, there's a UT alum who did this, who became a head education instructor at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or a field application scientist, so to teach people how to use different scientific equipments for Thermo Fisher. And then if you like communication, you should explore careers in advocacy, communications, PR, marketing, writing, publishing, and editing. And these are more real careers for PhDs. So deputy director for the Office of Science Policy at NIH, head of marketing communications at Sotheby's, managing editor at the Journal of Southern History. A UT alum from the communication school is the senior culture writer at BuzzFeed. She does great work. Or you could be a senior manager of science communications at Genentech. So I mentioned Imagine PhD and science careers, so take those assessments to identify your top skills to help determine R versus RT versus T fit. You can use those same assessments to identify other job families that align with your skills, interests, and values, and start exploring the wide variety of careers in industry, government, and nonprofits. Sorry, animations. Okay, so if you're on the job market for a single year, and you know you don't want to do more than one cycle, I highly recommend doing the parallel job search. So on the top is what the academic job search is going to look like. Start working on your application documents this summer. Use those academic job workshops to start developing your statements and schedule appointments with us in the Faculty Innovation Center to get feedback. Submitting applications will happen in the fall and winter over time as new positions are going to come up, and the interview process will happen over the winter to spring, and that will include a phone or campus visit. Simultaneously, on the non-academic side, you can explore careers by doing advising appointments with Texas Career Engagement, reading about careers online, and doing informational interviews. And then really focusing on networking in the winter and spring if it looks like you're going to turn to a non-academic position, and submit applications. Either way, you have a June finish, and this is a way that you can balance both job searches.